Welcome, crypto enthusiasts, to the Independent Reserve Podcast.
Episode 20 Independent Reserve Podcast, back with some old friends. Harrison Dell, part-time lawyer, full-time TikTok star. And Mike Bacina, I think everyone knows you, Mike. Full-time diver these days in the Cayman and part-time lawyer. So between us, you have a whole lawyer between you. So like,
Definitely, and a whole laying on the beach as well.
I wish. Since we last caught up, actually, Harry, good to see you made the. You came early today. You're the first one to our office. You didn't come in last like last time.
Yes, well, I did have to triple check the office address, and it did change from last time, so I'm happy that I did.
That's impressive.
Yes.
All right, and Harry, you too. Last time we chatted, you were still in Sydney, but now you've moved north. You're in Brisbane now as well, right?
Yes, I'm in Brisbane now.
Are you diving as much as Mike?
No, the Brisbane River is pretty disgusting. But I think more importantly, tax law is being priced out of Sydney and going up north. I think that's canary in the coal mine, gentlemen. But no, it's really nice up there. It's just a bit hot in summer. I came in this morning, landed on the plane, came out, and I was like, oh, the climate here is still the best. But Brisbane's lots of fun. Lots more interesting characters who like to push the boundaries a bit, do interesting tech stuff. Yeah. Having lots of fun.
Having lots of fun. There's a fair bit of crypto stuff happening up there, isn't there?
There is a surprising amount. So, like me and Mike were, on the circuit. It's mostly Sydney, Melbourne. That's where a lot of the stuff was, and there's a lot of interrelationships there. And Brisbane just seemed to sort of be on its own a little bit. But since getting there, it was really interesting. It took a while to build those networks in Sydney and in Melbourne, but in Brisbane, like within a few weeks, I'd met probably half the people that I really wanted to, with almost no difficulty. So it really is like a big country town.
Because it's so easy to get around. There's so many car parks everywhere. It's 10
so many
minutes
car
to the
parks,
airport.
except the CBD parking is the most expensive in Australia.
More than Sydney.
I thought it was
Wow.
going to be cheaper, and I rocked up and it was $100 a day, and I was like, well, hang on a minute, this is. I left Sydney for this. But no, there's better parking, really strong community of people that you can meet people really easily, which is good professionally. And it's quite a small group, but they all know each other, and there's not much ego going around. It's a really cool place. So lots of founders doing cool stuff too.
No, I agree, because you sort of had DeFi Summer was very Melbourne-based. You had a surprising number of the top 10 protocols had Melbourne engineers or Melbourne founders. And then Brisbane just kind of snuck up on people. It was a pretty decent-sized exchange that I think started anchoring some stuff up there, and the Pier 2 guys, and a whole bunch of really interesting things that were going on. Some other stealth projects are up there as well.
Developers as well.
Yeah.
Like Labris, DLTX.
Yes.
Blockstars, all up there. That's three pretty big name dev houses.
And did people move up there like you? Or are they just refugees from Victoria and Sydney? Or
There's a few refugees. It's growing quite a bit, and you can notice it most in I've been about 18 months. The improvement in the quality of the coffee, just like as a general statistic, has gone up. Because when I got there, it was so hard. I'm a bit of a coffee wanker. I have black coffee, fills of stuff. But now I can actually access some really nice stuff.
Okay. Like
outside just the pure city.
They're quite proud of it. I went up and visited the Pier 2 boys, and they said, we'll take you to a Melbourne quality coffee place down a little alleyway. It had the whole thing.
I know exactly the one they took.
Super hipsters, yeah, with all the brick wall. And it was amazing. If I still drank coffee, I'd go back.
Yeah.
So all the Italians moved to Melbourne, brought coffee culture, and then all the Melbournes, the Melbourneites, have moved to Brisbane to get that coffee culture going.
Oh yeah,
it seems that way.
All right. Well, Caymans, you got to talk us through this. So you made a big move to Cayman Islands.
I did. It was not long after the last podcast we recorded, actually, and it was all under embargo then, so I couldn't even talk about it.
But here we are.
Well, here we are. Yeah, so very big move, but there's so much that's been happening internationally, and obviously with the Trump administration coming in, there's a lot more clarity happening in the US. So just being in a position, both for clients that I've been working with for years who have presence there, and the global market access, and the deals coming out of America is just extraordinary in Europe as well. So that opportunity is fantastic. It was a whole bunch of things came together. I had a phenomenal junior partner in Stephen Pettigrove who could look after my clients here and take over at Piper's. And he and I are still finishing off textbook. In fact, the manuscript's over there. I've been reading it on the plane. So that's going to hopefully be out May, June, covering blockchain law in Australia and a bit of international flavour. But all these other things came together that made it possible. My kids are the right age to sort of have one big adventure. So we sold up our place and did the big move. So it's been very, very exciting and super exciting to now have my own little shop. Because once I tried to lure Harry to come to Piper's, I was like,
And
hey,
look where we are.
hey, do you want to come over? And he went, no, I can't. I'm starting my own firm. And I went, dang it.
The best you could do is lure him to our podcast.
Yes, for the second time. It must be working. But it must be really good being so US adjacent, because you still can't launch a token in the US unless you're the president, and most people are not. So like Caymans, and those islands, those relationships there, that's still that premier America's place to do it. Do you see that changing? Because people are very excited about, it's going to change, but do you really think it is?
No. You're talking about the Doonas and the push for that in the States?
Yeah, the whole vibe.
Oh, well, I was just meeting up with a friend of mine who's doing a lot of work in this space in New York on my way here, and he was saying that, there's a lot of early stage founders who are like, Trump's done it. It's all legal now. And he has to explain to them, no.
Not really.
Unless you're Trump, you're probably going to get sued.
I did see a LinkedIn post. A guy said, I want to meet a US crypto lawyer, but only ones that, have recommended launching in the US before. And I was so tempted to say something of like, no good US lawyer would ever recommend you launch that token in
Correct.
the US. So I hope you don't find anybody. And if you do, I don't think they're going to be good.
There is this Wyoming structure called the Doona, which A16Z had a hand in creating, and they've been pushing that pretty hard. So that's a decentralized, unincorporated association, which is fine as long as all the people who want tokens are happy to pay US tax. So it works very well if someone wants to tokenize shares in a company. And that's sort of been touted as, there's a way to do it onshore. And I know with the America First model under the Trump administration, there's a big push of trying to be seen to be doing things in the US. But even if they found a way to do a lot of things there legally, because of the way the IRS operates and tax, that would push the crypto to look more like traditional funds. There's 45,000 hedge funds in Cayman Islands. So in the position where America does that, you'll end up having all the access points for the rest of the world in Cayman, which weirdly enough will just complicate structures more. They're simpler now when they're based in Cayman to access the world, and usually via secondary back into the US. But projects being very strict will geo-block the US because of that SEC fear. But now that that's moving away, it'll depend on what the IRS is taking a view on. But if it's set up properly and it's properly independent, then it'll be simpler structures sitting there. But there were some tweaks to the VASP law recently. It still remains a light touch jurisdiction, so that combination of BVI and Cayman is very powerful, very fast, and an increasing and very impressive depth of talent on the island. I think, nearly 10 years ago when I first started looking at the jurisdictions around the place, there was only really like one or two lawyers on the island who were doing it, and I think only 2 directors. And now there's a bank of, I think about 30 directors who are good quality, actually understand Web3 things. The Blockchain Association of Cayman Islands is pretty good. I think Chambers is doing pretty good rankings now through there. So there's decent depth of bench there. Probably 5 or 6 lawyers who I'd really say are really awesome at it.
I think there'll be a lot, like the America First stuff. It'll become something, but a whole range of those US multinationals, they're US based, but their structure is not entirely US based. In fact, most of it is not. Hence, we've got like double Irish Dutch sandwiches and double malts and all sorts of things, but which are real tax structures. Unfortunately, some are now decommissioned, but they might be headed up in the US, like Google, Amazon are, but their token issuance and management stuff will probably still happen on those islands. And tax is a big factor. My prediction, and I suspect you'll agree, Mark, is the IRS isn't going to change things awfully quick unless massively forced to. And it's not even on the agenda yet. It'll come, but I don't think they're going to lighten it up so much where a token issuance is tax-free, which is what people want. But like Caymans, one of the big purposes of Caymans around funds management is that nil tax structure, so that tax gets pushed to that jurisdiction of where those investors are, which is how it should happen with tokens. So if I'm buying tokens and it's a Cayman entity, there's no tax internally, but on my tokens, on my distributions, my staking income, if I'm here, it's taxed. If I'm in, Seychelles or Panama, it's not. And that's just how it's supposed to work. A lot of these things mirror actually funds. So I really like these funds jurisdictions picking it up. It's not for a tax purpose. It's for just avoiding silly taxes and then taxing it at the right time at the investor level.
That's right. Because I think you otherwise end up with that situation where if you were doing it purely under the US, even with double tax treaties in place, it's a nightmare. The filings alone are nightmarish. So the paperwork is just awful on it. So I think that makes a lot of sense. Most people who are getting involved in token projects and buying tokens, they pay their tax. There's no tax avoidance or evasion at play, but it's taxing it at the right point, which is in the hands of the person who is doing it. They don't expect, if they're participating in a project that is essentially operating as a not-for-profit, that the money they're paying in there would get clipped at whatever it is, 20% federal tax or something. Unless it's a meme coin, which I assume Trump's going to pay that.
I
Tax
think big
on
Paul
that
will
sale.
assume Trump's paying his taxes.
That's going to be a very interesting one to watch if the IRS says, Mr. Trump and Melania, will you please pay taxes on your meme coin launches? Because they made a lot of money from that. But any meme coins and anything launched in the States, if they're going to face immediate tax bills, that's where I think it falls over.
Yeah.
And they don't get talked about when they're talking about that America First, except I think the Vice President made some noises about making something capital gains free. But I think Harry's right.
The capital gains tax exemption for American-made tokens, which I don't really know what that means yet.
But there is a big danger that then every multinational, every American company just goes, we're going to put everything as a token because it's capital gains tax free, and then call everything a token, and then it starts breaking things in other ways. So I think it'll be very difficult for that to happen. But certainly everything in America with the SEC disbanding their 50-person strong team. I was shocked when I read that there was 50 people on the crypto enforcement team inside the SEC. And the relative size of crypto to the financial industry and the enforcement teams, it was so disproportionately heavy. Yeah. But it's a real sign of the new SEC that the lead prosecutor on that team got moved to the IT department. He's not even a lawyer in the IT department. He just got moved to the IT department.
This is the stuff that's fascinating. I'd love to hear some of the stories to the extent you can share, like the people. So everyone sort of knew that Trump brought in, and he rode a little bit of crypto's popularity, and that certainly, I guess, is pretty much acknowledged. That kind of helped him a little bit. So now he's kind of repaying the love. But like, what are the actual kind of conversations? Like people talk about the mood shift change, but what's the practical stuff that people are sort of saying to you now? Oh, hey, this has changed. Here's now what I'm going to do.
The biggest difference is that crypto VCs and other people who might go in early and back projects have confidence when this narrative of this is okay and we're heading in the right direction. And they're not saying go and commit fraud. If someone's engaging in misleading and deceptive conduct or committing fraud, they need to be punished. And so the SEC and the CFTC over there are still making very clear that they will continue to prosecute where they see there is dishonesty going on.
As it should do.
Well, anyone who goes out and says something that's false should be held to account, right? It's the same in here. And I think Harry and I have probably been beating on that same drum for years to say if something's misleading and deceptive, it doesn't matter whether it's a security or a financial product or not, there's still laws against that. You don't need to get into the esoteric argument. So if those regulators in the US are just pursuing dishonesty, that gives a lot more confidence to those who make those critical early stage investments and even entrepreneurs who are thinking of starting up. Do I start up in this space? What are my risks? So taking away that risk of undue SEC enforcement when there's no path to compliance and just saying, well, they're just going to attack us full stop and we can't comply if we want to, is a very, very powerful thing. So I think that will help turbocharge matters moving forward because it's just that business confidence, right? And you could cast back to like the sort of 2016, 2017 days or even DeFi summary days in Australia where ASIC was more quiet about things and just left it alone and wasn't coming and suing people and doing regulation by enforcement. They were just sitting there doing a bit of guidance, but otherwise had bigger issues to deal with. So I think America's shifted to that kind of position of, well, we'll go after people who are doing the wrong thing, but we're going to try and work our way through. And it's going to take a few years. Yeah. I think Hester Peirce came out and said, you'll need patience. It will take some time. And a bunch of crypto people were criticizing it, saying,
things shouldn't take time.
Trump promised it to be fixed on day one. I don't think he did, but just they want it now.
It's actually a lot like the model the tax office used to do here with the previous commissioner, where if you were naughty, they throw the book at you. If you weren't that naughty, or you just didn't know, like they actually would help you and would want you to be compliant, not just refuse to give you answers and then prosecute you at the same time. Like
Austrac. Austrac's had a pretty fair approach to crypto exchanges here. Yeah. When something's wrong on AML CTF, they don't smash them around the head with a phone book. They go, we want you to fix these things. Yeah. And they go straight to remediation. So
it's not his criminal offences because they could do that.
Yeah, exactly.
That's not a good governance model for protecting Australians. And it's the same in any country, is that regulator's job is to protect people and
Correct.
facilitate the industry in a safe way. and random court cases with no guidance doesn't never fed that narrative. It's
Correct.
fed something else.
Hey, you said before, there was 50 people in the prosecution's department or whatever for the SEC. How does that? You said that was disproportionate. How disproportionate? What, for example, would there be their team for the rest of traditional finance, which is
There's 1,000 people in the SEC for the. That's not all prosecutors, right? But they're a 1,000-person agency. But I think that would have made them one of the largest prosecution teams. So I imagine there's at least 100 lawyers on market stuff and other things. There's to have 50 for the size of the crypto industry, which is still effectively single-digit kind of things, percentage size versus the regular financial market. It's so disproportionate.
Yeah.
Massively disproportionate. So it just smacked of that regulation by enforcement.
And now that's because there's obviously the previous government had their bent, they had their reasons for going after it. Has that sort of become more clear now? You've heard conversations going, well, this is why they after it so bad. Were there special interests or the banks? How was?
Well, the stuff coming out about Operation Chokepoint is astonishing. There was an amazing transcript from the federal court the other day, which was just blasting.
There was all those letters and things that they sent.
Well, they didn't put. I know it's apologies, viewers. We're going to get into some nerdy legal stuff. They didn't even put a litigation hold when Coinbase put a Freedom of Information request on the FDIC for records, and the judge just ripped into them and basically said, you have a week, which they should be up to about now, to get a witness ready for a deposition who can actually answer questions, or the judge will levy sanctions, which is very rare for a judge to go that hard. This transcript is, lawyers read it and go, oh my goodness. You don't usually see judges just, he just wouldn't even let the guy make submissions in court. He was just saying, answer my question. Why didn't you do this? And the guy said, well, I'm going to talk about, no, you'll answer it right now. Why?
Really?
It's just amazing. So the courts are getting pretty pushy about that. And that was the whole driver of debanking. And they've gotten more information out. I saw an email where someone had put through some report of a normal transactional account for a crypto exchange, not customer money, nothing, just for business purposes, and a reply email from someone at the oversight office saying, I thought there weren't going to be any more crypto dealings, full stop. And that's the kind of stuff that's been floating around internally. So I was a little skeptical when I heard, Operation Chokepoint 2.0 and that it's here, and I thought, they're just being a bit paranoid.
We saw it with Silvergate.
Well, that's over time I've increasingly gone,
in hindsight.
the tin hat guys were right. There's actually been a very concerted campaign in the US to debank crypto full stop, which is, very worrying for a place that says freedom-loving as the US to have that level of
I'm fascinated with part of the fallout. How did that administration get to the point where they're going, you know what, we're going to single you guys out and we're going to try and really go after you? What do you know what I mean? What was the driving force? What was the influence? What was the politics behind just trying to choke point one industry?
I don't know, because some people say, it's in special interest groups, the bank's trying to protect their own turf. And I've never found that narrative.
Are they that smart, or are they just scared of fraud? That's what they throw up, and I kind of don't discount it. That was their reason.
I think there is people who could genuinely believe this is terrible and could be systematically dangerous for the financial system if it gets too big too fast. What can we do to pump the brakes as hard as we can? And they may go into it with genuinely thinking that's the right thing and the best thing to do. And you can't fault them for that belief. You can say, I disagree with you, I don't think that's going to happen, and your methods are absolutely wrong. But I don't think it was someone nefariously sitting there going, ha 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 ha, I'm just going to kill it because I don't like it. I think they didn't understand it.
It's just as a non-lawyer, it's always kind of been I've never really understood the law stuff as well as you guys, but it seems to me that in a lot of cases, even in Australia, it's almost thank God for the courts, because the courts are still genuinely pretty fair in terms of they're dealing with things. They apply the law, and if even a government agency is getting out of line, they'll be like, no, you're out of line. In this case here, it sounds like the courts have said to the government, you guys are way out of line.
Absolutely.
Right?
I mean, it's taken a long time to get there, so it's been very good that people like Coinbase have been spending goodness knows how much money, because US lawyers are so frightfully expensive, just to get to the point of dragging this information out and then making it public. And it's, it takes a long time there. So, but I mean, the courts are our third branch of government. They're the overlooked branch because everyone always deals with executive
judiciary.
Yeah. But the courts are there. They're sort of the last line of defense for a lot of things, and no doubt will continue to be so as Mr. President Trump starts to do some other strange things.
A few interesting executive judiciary interactions there with executive orders which aren't really valid. creating quite a stir.
Paper straws are going to get banned.
Paper straw. Thank God. I like the odd plastic straw.
You've
but
got 30
I feel
seconds
like-
to drink it, or you just
just
you
mushes.
have to- you
So
throw it out.
now we're getting off topic here, but my family runs cinemas, and the paper straws absolutely
They're just
terrible.
garbage.
You got to get like 5 and take it to the movies.
I would think they'd like it though, because like Lee said, you've got to drink that frozen Coke in like 5 minutes, or you're toast. You've got to go buy another one after you've drunk the first one.
We like customer satisfaction, I guess. So just,
Hey, do you know if you dig deep into Harry's CV, like he has cinema manager a long way. I only just found out it was because your family run the business.
oh yeah. Sorry, it was nepotism.
Nepo baby,
all
right
along.
there.
Yeah, I ran a cinema in Sawtell in northern New South Wales when it reopened. That was just before I started my first job at the tax office. You probably know all of this, seeing as you've stalked my LinkedIn profile.
I didn't know you hated straws so much.
I'm very passionate about straws, not so much.
Paper straws so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we just found out that you're like Australia's version of Andre Botticelli.
Yeah. I tell you what, like I was in year 12, and I got offered this. It was a full scholarship to the conservatorium, but they're like, you've got to do all this stuff, and I was like, nah.
Can you
And-
whip
Can you
out a few
sing a
bucks?
little
Can
for
you
us?
give us something?
I can't. Like, I didn't learn it. Like,
They
they were like the
oh.
range, and I had some training, but like I haven't done it in like 12 years. So if I learned Japanese, I probably could have been an old samurai film. Actually, now I'm kind of got the regrets. I just have to do this crypto stuff.
I really want to hear you sing now.
Yeah, so do I.
I can't sing, gents. I've just got the low voice. So you're gonna have to like podcast. This is the best it gets.
I'm feeling a little bit robbed. I feel like I was just offered something
It's a
great and
baritone
it's been
rug.
taken away from me.
I'll send you a
Been
voice
rugged
note.
in baritone.
James L. Jones White.
Should put that as my my LinkedIn description. Yeah.
I don't know where to go from now.
we were talking about debanking. I'm very passionate about debanking in this country, and I think the views came out of the US in terms of those general views towards the industry, because Australia is generally a follower of policy, and we see that in government policy. I hadn't really observed it in banking, but since just FATCA, CRS stuff, we kind of follow more than lead. And I think that view came from the US. I think that US view was really just this is scary. We don't know what it is.
But what we are seeing, which is interesting, is those big 4 banks now have their transaction account value is dropping, and they're actually trying to get more people using their transaction accounts. And that's because people are using services like crypto, which I think is still a minority, but it's more like Revolut, Wise, those neobanks are just scooping up great volume because they can offer a better experience. But coming back to the crypto debanking stuff, like I've got a crypto business separately as well, which is focused on this banking services side. But even us getting an operational bank account, we're actually still looking, and it's been over a year. And some of them say, yeah, sure, sounds good, but then when push comes to shove, it's those AML departments that just say they get a bit spooked. The general thing is you don't get a chance to really explain yourself, and you can say, here's how regulated we are. Like I've seen a lot of crypto firms in this country and abroad that are better and more highly regulated than banks, voluntarily, because that's what they have to do to satisfy the real overlords, which are the banking rails. Because if you can't get into the crypto ecosystem or out into what governments still need you to pay money in, then you've got a problem. And that problem is getting bigger and bigger as more people use that system. So yeah, debanking, I'm very passionate about it. I've been debanked myself. My law firm has been debanked, which was sort of the final straw for me, where I needed to do something about it. So we're hoping to be able to provide some of those transactional banking services to crypto companies and other sort of high-risk industries. But we'll keep it to crypto.
Do you think it's getting better? I mean, I won't mention who, but I had this discussion with someone who had first-hand experience with the politics in Australia. And, the Trump effect was real in that a lot of people in Australia kind of went, holy moly, like Trump went and appeased the crypto people. And there's enough people out there who own crypto and enough self-interest in there that goes, those guys actually vote. It's kind of a single issue vote for them. And there's enough people who single issue vote on something that's important to them.
Oh, yes.
We have to start paying attention to this group. And in Australia, as we know, it's just been ignored. predominantly, as much as the industry has been like, hey, pay us attention. We want to play by the rules. Let's all play it together, right? Mike, you know this firsthand for your work with now Deca, and it's only once you get sort of bipartisan, I guess, self-interest from their point of view, where they're both going, oh, we both need to compete for these people, where you actually start seeing some tangible kind of, action going, oh, hang on, if they win those people, that means we didn't have those people. We better start fighting over them.
It is starting.
Right? And here's the thing here's the interesting bit, is that, again, I won't mention who, but the conversation effectively went, okay, we saw what happened with Trump. Let's go do our own polling. Oh, hang on. There's like 15% or something of people own crypto in Australia. Oh, shit, it's 20% in Australia. Right? Oh, and actually 20% of those people are likely to vote for us. And if we lose those people, we could actually lose power.
Yeah. When the balance of power of a vote is like 1% in so many of those seats, like that crypto vote could be the thing that really wins it.
And to win them over, it's more just like, we'll include you, we'll work with you. It doesn't have to be, you don't even have to offer them anything over and above what's already being afforded to other people. It's such, if I was a politician, I'd be going,
it's an easy win.
I'll give you what
It
everyone
really
else has.
The big three are banking that we spoke about, financial services and regulations just needs to be sensible, make sense, and not exclude people and not subject people to very strange, AFSLs and things which are impractical. And tax. They're the three. That's it.
And tax is the hardest, but they can all work out.
Yeah, they can at least do 1 and 2.
Yeah.
And 3 will, take a few years
it takes
at
care
least.
of itself eventually, but the basic
kinda
rules
does.
around it are kind of working, but there's little edge cases. But you're absolutely right. It's not a hard win for Canberra or any government to do, because mostly it's about setting the right narrative. I think Sydney, Melbourne, and all of Australia had that huge boost, nearly 8 years ago by that benevolent indifference from government that supported it, plus the R&D money and whatnot. So people felt safe starting up businesses and going for it. And I think that's that supportive position. To your point about regulators. If you have a regulator that says, come in, let's have a chat. Okay, this is how you could do it. Stay away from these areas. And some regulators genuinely don't think it's their job because they don't think that's the mandate they're set up with. And once upon a time, that was probably true. But with technology making it so easy for people to spin up businesses and do really exciting, interesting things, and that's only going to get faster with AI tools allowing that to happen. Old school regulators that say this is our turf, and if you're not one of us, or you don't speak the language, or you didn't go to the right private school, you can't talk to us, they can't do their jobs effectively anymore because they have too many people coming in saying, well, I'm going to do this thing, and I can do it a bit better because I've learned with this technology that'll jump ahead. But that's, there's definitely problems that need to be fixed, but that messaging goes a long way towards helping people be comfortable. I mean, we're still seeing, I think I was reading on the way over, the New York Times lambasting, like, who made money and lost money on the Trump meme coin kind of thing. And having some disaffected Trump people, which makes the New York Times just look even more like they don't like Trump, but that's no secret, right? So, that positioning from the government, I think you're absolutely right. They can say, well, if we put this position of support, which the Liberal government did really well. I mean, putting them effectively the money and resources into running that Senate inquiry.
It was so close. It was so close to having something make
really
sense.
good recommendations, and then they all just kind of sat there.
Yeah.
I think, what is it, Aaron Lane and Chris Bergen guys have put out a recent article, saying Australia's in regulatory purgatory after, 13 or 14 consultations, and it's kind of getting to, ABC comedy show level of consultations, where it's like,
everyone jokes, we'll have it in 18 months.
They talked up this Info 225, ASIC draft thing, and it just was really disappointing. And look, I'm not deep in that space. It's good movement, but 13, 14 years to get movement just is not fast enough. But my local member is the shadow prime minister. The Liberals have been talking about this openly quite a bit, which is really interesting. Luke Howarth in Brisbane, is a big supporter of it. There's been some really cool industry events. With that political lobbying flavour. So I suspect that there will be some movement in the election. We've got an election coming up. What is it, May? I forget how it works.
I think it has to be done by the 2nd of May or some date.
To be called at some point. Yeah. So early Q1, Q2 this year. I think that political discourse will ramp up. They're sort of dipping the toes in, which is really exciting because we haven't seen them dip the toes in yet.
And that's so important because with the current proposed licensing for exchanges and the proposed changes for Info 225, it's rapidly heading in this dual licensing model, which would be terrible for Australian crypto.
Oh, yeah.
Because the fundamental issue of what the heck is most of these tokens remains up in the air. And, Harry and I have sat around tables with regulators where They say, oh, it could be this, it could be that. And, it's got to the point where people in the industry say, we all know when it's clearly a financial product, because they say, oh, it could be a share, it could be that. We go, yeah, that's fine. That case is over here. When it's obviously a share, it's obviously a share. No one's ever disputed that.
Yeah.
The fact is there's barely any that are that. It's this big lump in the middle. It's your Bitcoin, it's your Ethereum, it's your Solana, it's all your majors, it's governance tokens and utility tokens that are not pretending to have any kind of underlying return. And if the money that had gone towards suing people had gone instead towards figuring out a way to put disclosure and compliance in, we'd be in a way better place. And that rings true for America probably 100 times more than Australia. But the resources put into those cases that have been run,
And some of them got no outcome.
There's no outcome.
Some of them they lost or effectively lost, and some that they did win, particularly around the fraud and scam stuff. I don't want to mention any particular company names or cases, but like that's their job to do that, and I was very happy to see that. But then when there was legitimate product stuff that they offered, which seemed actually quite vanilla, whether it be Bitcoin-backed loans and all sorts of things, it's like, well, everybody knew what that product was. Like maybe needed some more disclosures, but like is going to court the right answer? It's probably not, especially when there was no real guidance out there. So instead of going and spending money prosecuting people, if they just work down the list from Bitcoin down to the top 100 and say these ones aren't financial products, like those exchanges will feel much more comfortable.
Correct, and you won't end up with a digital asset license that you won't be able to list anything under, because currently it's heading in that direction where someone who shall not be named sat at a table and had a conversation of, okay, so what can they list under this new license? And the answer was, I guess, tokenized Taylor Swift tickets. And I went, well, that's useless because now eBay needs a license to sell tokenized or just Taylor Swift tickets. That makes no sense. So we don't want to end up in a position in Australia where everything's a financial product, but guess what? Bitcoin doesn't have a product disclosure statement because no one runs it, so you can't list it. That makes no sense, and that's the dangerous path of having this dual licensing approach. It'd be much simpler if it's a single license approach.
Explain the dual licensing approach.
It's I think Hong Kong's probably another example. There's some countries that have taken the position of, if a token is a financial product, then the exchange needs a markets license, and and everything that isn't a financial product needs to can go under this light touch digital asset or crypto asset license.
How many market licenses are on issue in Australia right now? I think it's like 14.
I was going to say it's between all of our hands.
And it'd be so silly if you had like a tier 1 market license and it's like, well, okay, Bitcoin's now a security. Okay, great. When it pumps 15%, we need a letter from the CEO. Like, what? Like it doesn't make any sense.
There's a whole bunch of lots and lots of compliance that made a lot of sense, perfect sense in centralized world, that have added up over time to help protect investors in these environments that just don't line up at all. And that's always been the frustration of the industry, both here and I think in the US and other places, was how can you marry that up? And Europe's going through the MICA birthing pains of trying to marry it up as hard as they can, and they'll get criticized for shortfalls, and they currently are being criticized on a bunch of things, but you know what? They're having a red hot go of it.
Yeah.
And some people say, well, MICA was really set up to shut down Libra because there's some stablecoin stuff in there that's pretty obviously aimed at the old Libra project, but they're still moving it forward. I mean, if you go really hard down this crazy path, you end up where
everything's
independent reserve might take over the ASX because you're forced into getting a markets license. And then, oh, look, your systems work better in some ways. And then who knows? So it could lead to a very weird outcome that people aren't expecting.
But the main one that's obvious is if it's really, these market licenses are super expensive. And as a lawyer, that's great for us. Like, that's the main expense of that. But it means that Australian consumers get less choice of exchanges because the small ones will have massive difficulty.
They'll just shut down
or they'll just become brokers of the big one. And then we have this centralized risk of everyone's using, independent reserve, no doubt, will be the only one that survives. And that's actually bad for consumers. As well as all of the tax policy that goes on those businesses. They haven't even thought about the exchanges yet. And sort of thank God, because the ATO's put out some very weird things about exchanges, which we're like, well, that's completely impractical. Whether it's right or wrong, you can't really do it. But a big one to really solve is the token launches and that economic value creation. We're losing it. It's gone. It's not here. Every client I get, if they're going to make a multi-billion-dollar project, it's get out of here as quickly as possible. And that's really a reflection of the underlying tax system, where you don't want your value here because it's quite highly taxed. And in the world of SaaS and the general technology businesses, they're quite mobile, where we've had those multinational cases about Google, Facebook. But those startups are now thinking the same, that they go, well, sure, I might get maybe an R&D tax offset if we're lucky. But the worst case is paying 30% tax on the entire corporate group. And this happened to Atlassian, who got a big kick in the teeth, where the ATO said you have to have your royalties taxed here all the time because they claimed R&D. That's the research and development tax offset for those listening at home. And Australia are very much tax police of the world. Put the claws in everywhere. They've done the same with a lot of other large businesses, which you can simply look up, to bring the profits home. So if I'm building a innovative product and I've got great funding, mate, I'm out of here. I'm in Caymans, I'm in Switzerland, I'm in somewhere that isn't Australia at the very least, because it's just not welcome here, let alone all the ASIC stuff. And all of that potential gain that we could tax and add to our coffers and spend on all sorts of things is gone. And it's gone before it's actually even started in most cases, because like lawyers like me and Mike and almost all of them, I said, look, either you license yourself up to the teeth, which is going to cost you lots of money, or you do it somewhere that's more friendly and you manage those tax corporate risks, because it's kind of unworkable. And this sort of overarching theme where the licensing thought gets kind of worse and worse every year. It just sort of backs me up when I'm like, well, yeah, that's why you don't want to be here, because let's all get a markets license and spend $3 million on lawyers.
And it's not like little startup people, twiddling a moustache and a monocle going, how will I make all my value and not be taxed? It's people who are saying, I'm starting a business, here's my competitors.
100%.
The investors.
I've got some like that though.
Keeping the monocle manufacturers in business. Top
we're going to
hats too.
Photoshop a monocle on you when you say that.
With a twirly moustache. But, they're competing in a global market from day one, right?
Yeah,
so if you've got 3 different startups, one's here, one's in Dubai, one's in America, and they're looking for investment. And so many of those tech companies are looking for that early stage investment. Australia struggles to get early stage investment. And I think part of it is there's been various incentives put in place, but there's an overall problem
There's not enough.
Yeah, there's not enough. So and then there's US models to encourage that. Places like Dubai are just running ahead. So and I've seen heaps of Australian projects and founders move up to Dubai because there's a lot of access to talent.
Yeah, I've seen
and
it.
seems like
And
there's loads of investment.
Probably, what was it?
clients.
I think it was Immutable,
Customers.
where they were hitting the pavement for 12 months in Australia, couldn't raise their capital, and then when they went to New York, they raised it all in a week.
Yeah.
And I hear that actually all the time.
Yeah.
It's not that people don't want to invest in Australian businesses. In fact, we make awesome businesses, like unicorns per capita, way off the chart.
We invented Wi-Fi.
We invented Wi-Fi and made no money on it. But we invented
No,
it.
they make $200 million a year.
I'll do that, okay.
Which is not much of a return for
No, for global Wi-Fi.
standard.
But, we've got heaps of great businesses, crypto and otherwise. But the majority of that capital actually doesn't come from Australia.
Well, part of that makes sense. I mean, look, the US is still the deepest, and the capital formation still
But
happens
also
so much there.
risk hungry as well.
That's true.
They'll take
appetite.
they'll put $500,000 in, whereas here they'll give you $50,000 and they'll ask you for indemnities and personal guarantees.
Director rights.
Yeah, and a 20x liquidation preference, and it's like, what's going on? Whereas in the US, they go, yep, here it is, give me preference shares, done. They invented the safe note, which simple agreement for future equity. Look, it does the job at the early stage, but here it's just too hard. And it's too hard from a general corpse and tax perspective to do a whole lot of cool things. And Australia's missing out.
Yeah, it's a real shame. So I know with the industry general, so crypto industry specifically, like looking to engage with politicians and regulators, it's predominantly done through guys like you, like lawyers, and people who are lawyers who speak the law stuff, but also have a personal interest in crypto and the industry. I was just wondering if you guys had sort of some examples or stories of what that kind of actually looks and feels like, and has there been a change in the conversations and how you've been received by both government and sort of politicians, I guess?
Let me talk regulator-wise so far. So the general messaging is what we've been speaking about. So there's problems with that. But on a case-by-case basis, I've actually had some really excellent experiences with the ATO. So there was a class ruling that was obtained for Digital Surge, my mutual client, and this is public, where it was on behalf of all of the creditors who were being made whole, and they had tax certainty as well, because step one after doing something really cool and innovative is you need to get some tax certainty, and the ATO actually engaged in it really, really well. No doubt, our very careful messaging and doing a lot of legwork for them definitely helped. But in terms of like the attitude, they were like, look, it's an industry like any other. They're bound by the law. They didn't intentionally make it harder for us. In fact, they actually made it as easy for us as possible to get that outcome. So the issue, I think, really remains with the law. not with the regulators in the ATO's case. I can't speak to ASIC, I don't sort of liaise with them so much. But Austrac, you mentioned before, I find them to be quite good and practical. You know, they don't just reach for the big stick. They actually just want you to report money laundering stuff that's happening if you're one of those reporting businesses, of which I'll be one soon as a lawyer as well, which is a whole new thing. But, you know, it's mostly ASIC that is a bit of a mixed bag, it seems. I don't know what your experience is, Mike.
Does that mean people can be de-lawyered soon?
Yeah, I hope so. Force of retirement, maybe.
Look, I think regulators have come a long way, right? You know, ASIC hired Reece Boland as digital asset lead, and Jonathan Hatch has been an incredibly hardworking public servant over the entirety of my time in crypto, turning up to events, having friendly chats with people, just understanding the technology. And Reece wrote some early papers on crypto-related matters. So getting people to understand things inside regulators is super important. You know, being involved with Digital Economy Council of Australia, formerly Blockchain Australia before, that kind of engagement through industry bodies is so important to politicians because it takes away, to some degree, the special interest point. Because if it's just a company going in by itself, there's a big special interest vibe about it. But at least an industry association is listening and representing multiple people and trying to go in and balance things. And that's super important as well. I think it's really a case, and I've been banging the drum on this for ages, of if people talk to their local member, they might be surprised because the local members almost have to take a meeting with their constituents if they ask for one. Nobody ever does, except for like little old ladies who are like, I've been overcharged by Energy Australia, can you fix this or something? People go to politicians for help, and that was like an old school thing that was done, and I kind of feel like generationally, I wasn't brought up as a you should do this, but I kind of discovered it along the way of if you just reach out, well, you go along to their, you know, giant $100 a head lunch or something at the end, or thing at the end of the year. They're just regular people, but they'll make time to hear issues from their constituents, and if there's enough people talking to them or making noises about it, then it moves the needle.
Yeah, I've actually recommended you know, going to your MP for certain tax complaints.
Yeah.
You know, we've had the ATO complaint process, and it's, you know, not that effective. Even the Inspector General's not that effective. But you get the MP involved or the minister, and heads start to roll and things start to move. It's rare you need to do that, but like they are effective, and that's their job, is to represent their constituents. They have no authority over the executive, but you know, as part of the separation of powers, it's little used. We vote for these people. It's not just we turn up once a year to vote for them. You can make them actually do some stuff. Yeah. You have to be a little bit persistent sometimes, just to get the meetings and stuff. But if you really want that meeting, like, you will get it.
Yeah, it might take a few months to get, but it's possible. And I think that is moving along. And I think there's more politicians who understand crypto than is appreciated.
Yep.
I think, you know, the last Liberal government, the entirety of cabinet understood it. They got it. I don't know within Labor. I think there's some certain key people who didn't understand it, but it's just really the narrative is so strong. And so the US changes in massive pivot is super interesting because it almost gives you a timeline of when do you start seeing that influence come through into Australia. Because the SEC is massively influential at IOSCO level, which is the International Organization for Securities Regulators around the world. But really the SEC has a huge presence in it. So if the SEC truly has pivoted as hard as we think it has, then that's going to flow through IOSCO, which ASIC is a member of, and that's going to have some very interesting positions as well. Because, I mean, one of the previous IOSCO principles around DeFi was essentially find somebody who's responsible for the smart contracts, which made no sense.
No sense at all.
But it was a very, very regulation by enforcement angle. I read that where that's the SEC's position of like, find somebody that we could go after for this.
And they did. They looked really hard, and for most of those like DAO prosecutions, they found someone, and they really hung their hat on it. But like, we're seeing the crypto asset reporting framework, CAF, being rolled out in the next 12, 18 months. And it again has those same issues with DeFi. If they're like, well, does it apply? Like, can we make Uniswap give us everybody's wallets? And they can't because they don't have...
How do you make a smart contract file a piece of paper?
Yeah.
And the US tax has huge problems with that because so much of the US tax system is filing of bits of paper.
Here's another 1099 form.
Yeah, but they're literally pieces of paper, in some cases that don't have electronic systems attached to them, which is astonishing for a country of 350 million people.
Truckloads of paper. Like, have you seen the truckloads of paper?
It's like something out of The Simpsons.
It's a joke.
That's great.
It's
It's
amazing.
like old tech just does not compute.
They still use checks. It's astonishing.
Yeah.
My old firm, got a check from a winding up, a relatively high-profile winding up, and nobody in Australia would cash it. I ended up taking it to a Texas payday loan place when I was in Texas to try and cash this check, and they're like, "No, sorry, honey, we don't cash those checks." I was like, "Well, it was worth a shot." I still have the check. It's useless. It's gone stale now because the firm just went, "If you can cash it in, go for it," because we can't. There was one company in Australia.
There was
that
US dollar check.
Yeah, there was one company here that was. I researched it heavily. It was buying checks. That was how it was done.
Wow.
But because our
there was
checks,
like a good arbitrage on that.
but they stopped it because apparently there was no money in it. But they would buy it at like 10% discount or something on face value. So, any entrepreneurs out there, if you want to start a check buying business for US dollar checks, apparently there's a demand.
So it's like Gumtree for checks. I like it.
Yeah.
But it's just, there's a lot of stuff in America. It's odd, like you say, it's a huge, deep, liquid market, and it's so backwards in some ways. Outside of like Silicon Valley and some cool, narrow things, it's all still signed for credit card payments.
It's crazy.
And they're not so big on like the tap and pay things. But we love it here.
That's
I'll
been
tap
coming
whatever
in
you want.
a bit more there. But
Yeah.
I
Because
think
the
tipping
it's all
culture
of-
slows that down as well.
Yeah,
'cause they
yeah.
go, how are we going to get tips if people are tapping to pay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
And the infrastructure takes time to build. Hey, we have to talk about your time in the Caymans because I know I was making some jokes about diving, but you live in the Caymans now. How's life over there?
You know what the best part is? Actually, Harry, what would you think the best part is about living in Cayman?
Well, you did tell me once that you had a board meeting, except you were scuba diving. And I asked you, how would you possibly have a board meeting scuba diving? And you just never responded. So
It's because he's underwater.
that sounds like the best bit. It sounds like a great.
Before we went in the water.
Oh, okay, that's the bit I was like, underwater. Yeah, I'll do a board meeting like that.
But honestly, the best thing's been the most unexpected thing, which is I have a 14-year-old and an 11-year-old, and it's literally a 5-minute commute to school. So I get to have breakfast with my kids every day versus in Sydney where I'd be 45 to an hour each way.
And you were pretty close to the city too. And
Not too far, just northern beaches.
yeah.
But just with parking and walking and whatever. So, but honestly, the best thing is I have dinner and breakfast with my family every day, and I can take those kids to school. School starts at 8 there, so it's pretty early. Then drive to the office, and I'm still the first person there.
Yeah,
So
wow.
they're a little more chill at when people start.
The island lawyers, I've heard stories.
So that is the most unexpected delight of being there. Is I've probably seen more of my family in the last 6 months than I did in the preceding 2 years, kind of thing.
Yeah, that's a good
Just
thing.
because being there, and that's so important, right? Because I always say family should come first. There's an amazing industry, but industries are made up of people. So that's been one of the best things. It's bloody hot in summer there, though. Geez, when I arrived,
Well, that's why you got your board meetings in the water.
even my pool was 34 degrees.
How hot does it get?
I was going to say, don't talk to me about Queensland's heat. It's basically always about 30, 32, and then it's just humidity changes.
Yeah, okay,
You're
because
pretty
it's
much on the equator, right?
Pretty close.
Oh,
So
is
it's-
it? Is it that
so-
far south? thought
So
it
I
was-
think for like 3 months of the year, that summertime, sort of June, July, August, is just awful. Just awful. And then the rest of the, once you're in sort of November, it's really nice.
So I heard you can tell the visitors on the island when the professional lawyers that come visit because they wear their Boston, New York suit or whatever, and they're sweltering, and then everyone else is wearing linen or they're wearing shorts.
Have you got yourself some linen suits?
Sadly, I already have one that I had here for Sydney summers. But no, I probably do need to get a suit, but maybe not because no one wears suits on the island.
Yeah.
I
So
was gonna
what?
say,
So
like,
what do you wear though? Like,
Oh, you'd love it.
yeah, I'm
It's
already keen.
The only reason you're wearing long pants to the office is if the air conditioning's on too strong.
Yeah. Okay.
So most there's a lot of t-shirts and shorts. There's a lot of also old school sort of British lawyers there who like to wear suits, but you very rarely see anyone with a jacket on. As you say, it'd be a visiting lawyer doing that. I had to get all robed for my court admission there.
Oh yeah.
I was roasting because I had the wig and everything, and I was like,
Yeah,
wow.
they have wigs in Cayman. I didn't even know that.
Everyone's still wigged going into court, so I had to do that for my admission there, which was pretty toasty.
So you'd be wearing a work, but
Full suit plus
Oh, really?
British robes.
Because I had an image you'd be wearing the British robes, but then you'd be wearing like sandals. or
Oh,
something.
wouldn't that be amazing? No. It's an interesting place, and then they have they actually have strict dress codes for government buildings. So if you were wearing a singlet and thongs, you're not getting into a government building.
Mm.
So I saw some poor girl getting rejected from going into the passport office because she had like a sleeveless dress on, and they're like, nope,
Yeah,
you
right.
can't come in. You need sleeves.
What's some
So-
tell us more.
So
some-
culturally, it's
yeah.
quite a conservative country at heart.
It's still got that British.
Yeah, it's
culture,
British.
heavy British
There's a very
culture.
strong. There's lots of churches there, so it's a very fairly conservative culture. It's I think 85,000 people, 65% of which are expatriates in working. So it's
I was gonna
a
say.
very interesting mix. So there's a very
I thought it
strong.
would be higher actually than 65%.
It's quite a lot. Well, I guess after 12 years, people become Caymanian.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. A lot of
So
the people.
some
have-
of that number would
yeah.
have been people from more than 12 years ago, but very heavy. Obviously, being a British overseas territory, huge British influence. So a lot of English people, huge amount of South Africans, and then probably Canadians are a big chunk as well. And a surprising number of Aussies. So actually, I did not lure him over, but a lawyer from my old firm came over to a rival firm, and he just arrived a few weeks ago.
Oh, right.
So it's good to have some more people I know on the island. So it's just, and it's a very interesting place. But other than very fast to get around, and the diving's great, and it's pretty quick to get to America on flights, and a lot of business going on. But it's a very different vibe to Sydney.
I have two things. I heard there was a rumor someone told me that there's no police on the island.
There's plenty of police on the island.
Okay, all right. I was like, that's a bit suspect. But the other bit, and is like a big part of what I do, is international tax is one of my focuses. Is people leaving this country. Caymans is quite a high barrier to get in unless you're running a business. You can get the work permits and such. But I actually have a lot of Aussies who are wanting to move over there because they manage US businesses. And US taxes are just frankly a complete nightmare. It's worse than Australian tax, for the record. They might do a lot of business, sort of, have some salesmen, have some staff, whatever, but they can live in Caymans. And they can go, a couple of hours at most to any capital city?
It's an hour and a half to Miami, or hour and 45.
Yeah?
How long? And a half to New York.
Okay, all right, a little bit longer than I thought. But, you can go...
Pretty quick.
FTX was based in Caymans, wasn't it?
No.
Bahamas.
Bahamas. Sorry, yeah, you're right. I was going to say, you didn't go and visit the SBF's penthouse? I guess you can't.
My biggest regret in life is I got invited to FTX Bahamas, and I was like,
You didn't
I'll go next year.
Oh,
and bloody Bill Clinton was there, and Tom Brady was there, and
Tony Blair ran into Tony Blair.
And I was talking to clients. They're like, "Yeah, there's like 18 pools at this resort." And I'm like, "Shut up!" Like,
oh yeah, that was a very interesting conference, but
I will never not regret going. I literally thought, I'll just go next time.
That's right. Well, Mark was a creditor for FTX, so I guess I hope it was
still
worth
a creditor waiting.
Still waiting.
I get a little money back.
I hope it was worth the price you paid for it. Well, you literally paid for it.
No, I got invited. I went along to the FTX Bahamas. No, I got invited along. One of the sponsors.
Oh, okay, nice.
They'd be very hard. No, Bahamas is a very expensive place, but they were very big there. But
didn't they have a big building shaped as FTX, like that was their office?
No, it was weird.
Someone
took me past their offices.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with Arrested Development?
Yes.
It was like that. They'd bought 6 kit homes, which were all surrounded by parking, and that was their headquarters.
Oh.
They had under construction some big building that I don't think ever got built.
Okay, yeah.
So it was, I remember pulling in and going, it's like Arrested Development. How little did I know that would be so prescient later on. But little model homes.
That's wild.
Which is but that's what I think the islands are kind of like. Like there's office buildings in Cayman that used to be hotels that have been then converted into office buildings.
What's the population there like on the island?
85,000.
85,000. So everyone would kind of know everyone after a while.
I think so. Yeah, I think it's definitely
small.
That's not
it's like a small Aussie city, really.
And in many ways, it's smaller than that, right? Because when talking about sort of the crypto bar and all the people doing crypto-related things, and then there's all the people doing the fund-related things that are very deep in 45,000 hedge funds that are domiciled there. So there's a lot of accountants, BDO, PwC, they've all got presences there.
I imagine they're like relatively small offices of. Like they're not, 100 people, 200 people.
No, those ones would be.
Those ones, the big ones have a big
presence. Because they've also got some, protectionist requirements like investment managers must use a Cayman auditor.
Oh, okay, so they have the Cayman on the ground.
So there's certain sort of protected things that must use that on-island resource, which has then led to a whole bunch of people being there. Same as the directors being there. So, those industries have grown up. But, it's an interesting place. But like anything, it's an island. There's things where the government take longer. Things are just a bit slower.
There's some island time.
There's a bit of island time. If you're, turning up appointments, people might not be there and then turn up 10, 15 minutes late because that's just what it is.
They come dripping wet from the beach. I've heard that one before.
That I've yet to encounter. I'll look forward to it.
It does. You sell it to me though. It sounds like it's been a good move.
Look, it's been very enjoyable, and I've been getting much more exercise than I used to get here. But even honestly, just cutting out my commute almost feels like it's worth it. Getting 2 hours of my day back. It's probably the same of you moving up to Queensland.
It's still half an hour for me to get into the office, and I only go
you live in
3
the
days a
countryside?
week.
I've been to Brisbane. You get everywhere in 10 minutes.
Yeah, I'm on the fringe. So
okay.
when I lived here, I was in North Ryde, and it was 30 minutes drive into the city. Maybe 40 with traffic. And
Jared's
then
sighing over there because you talk us through it, Jared.
2 hours each way.
Oh.
Every day.
Like I was whinging, but that's like relatively in Sydney. But I'm like northwest, like I'm on the border of national
You
forest.
could have like chickens and cows and stuff.
Oh, almost. If I went another kilometre,
I could see you doing
full
farming.
chickens
with
and
a
cows.
hat.
Yeah, I was a farmer. We had cows. We used to feed them popcorn.
Yeah, I was going to say you had a cinema and you're a farmer.
Yeah, like a hobby farmer. We had some land.
Was it for tax purposes?
Yeah, no, it probably was.
Everyone used to. I remember as a law student, I go, why do all these rich people have farms? Because there's some tax local farms.
So here's some trivia. So everyone would like to do an adjustment where you have some land, people put horses and cows and stuff on it. That doesn't count as primary production because all you're doing is renting the land. You're not actually making any livestock. And state revenue get people with that every single year. They're like, nah, not primary production.
Even if your horses.
You got to have your own horses. Yeah, you got to have your own horses. I did have a case recently where we argued that racehorse production and sale, not training them, was primary production. They were like, yeah, fair enough. Because there was a big case where they were just racing them and they're like, oh, we breed too. And they're like, not primary production. So we're getting off topic here, though.
No.
For the kids at home, primary production means very little tax, as I would understand.
Yes. The little.
We're getting snippets of wisdom from Tax Jesus.
Oh, you said it, not me, mate.
Harry, is it true that you're not doing as much TikToking as you were before?
Yeah, I got too busy, mate. It's
actual working. That's horrible.
Yeah, it's a bit of a pain actually. So the firm is up to like 8 or 9 people now, and we sort of desperately need more. So if there are any tax lawyers in Brisbane or even Sydney, please hit me up. We have offices.
It's the number 1 channel for tax lawyers out of work.
This no doubt is very popular with tax lawyers, the niche profession that it is. But what I've really found is there is a lot of hunger for like the way that we do things, and Mike's always done things similar way, hence we got on very immediately when we did meet, of people who actually want that strategic advice. They don't want the compliance. The compliance is necessary and valuable, but being able to just solve some problems quick and find some solutions and figure it out, that's what people want, and it's actually quite hard to find. So tax lawyering will never die. And in fact, all the cool stuff the humans get to do and all the boring stuff we can get AI to do, it's getting better and better. Yeah, so please come help me so I can make more TikToks.
More TikToks. And you can have a board meeting in... what's the name of the river that runs through Brisbane? You can have a board meeting.
I don't know, the really brown one. I don't know.
Brisbane
River. I was assuming, but I didn't want to say anything because I do live there and I should know that.
The Parramatta's not Sydney River, so you never know.
Yeah, fair. Now need some more people to come work with me, and then I can make more TikToks and do more shit posting because that's what I'm best at.
Didn't you? Because you got like 30,000 plus followers or something.
It's like 46,000 or something for like a tax lawyer. I'm like, oh, that's
pretty good.
It was very consistent over about 2.5, 3 years there. I've actually got the attention of the ATO a couple of times. In some good ways and bad ways, where they go like, "Oh, I don't like this very much." I was like, "Well, the law sucks. It's your fault, mate. Well, it's not their fault. It's the Parliament's fault." But like other ways, actually, I've helped the ATO with some scam prevention from TikTok as well. Where so they're happy with me. I think, all sorts of things were going on in TikTok. There was all the GST fraud years ago, and that really stung the tax office. Was a lot of money, but. They can now get onto that stuff a lot better. They like having me around. I think they do.
So if the ATO likes and subscribes this video, we'll know.
Yeah, we'll know.
I like you.
We'll see if they like it on LinkedIn and the snippet comes out. But yeah, please come help me. Then I can go to Caymans and we'll go to the beach. Not you. You have to stay and work. Me and Mike will go to the beach.
We'll have some important board meetings.
Scuba diving.
Yeah, that's nice. And business is going well for you then too, Mike?
Well, look, are
you growing as well? Do you need tax law? Do you need people? You need
it's
still his stuff?
No tax at the Caymans, mate.
Well, as I mentioned, another lawyer from my old firm came to Caymans to a different firm because it's really hard to find talent on the island because I think as Harry mentioned, there's quite substantial barriers to getting there, and it's just a small pool.
All right.
So probably will. But it'll be very hard to find. So we may have to outsource some of our stuff.
But you could steal some of Harry's stuff just for lols.
Please don't. No.
I was going to send overflow work, but it sounds like he's too busy.
We'll figure it out. We'll see
how it grows. But the market is so big there, and the global market is fantastic. I'm really, hopeful on where it's going to go. I think I've been getting to have the fun part of doing a blank sheet on a sort of brand new system design, and once upon a time I was a bad software developer. So, now 20 years later, maybe I've forgotten how bad I was. But AI's helped me in fixing those problems. So building out that stuff to be able to get stuff done faster for clients is actually a lot of fun for me, because been able to make improvements at the various firms I've been in, and Harry was kind enough to sort of share with me his tech stack, and we nerd out over what can be done.
Yeah, I'm stealing a bunch of your stuff that you're doing, actually.
That's good.
I was like, this is way better.
But that's what you do. You work together, and it's amazing how many professional services firms still aren't embracing that kind of automation. And I think that's a really awesome point of difference of just being able to get stuff done faster, because it just aligns better with what clients need, which is, as Harry mentions, that super strategic commercial thinking on, we're really just problem solvers. We're here to solve a problem. It happens to be a legal problem or a tax problem.
Yeah.
But
sometimes it's a product problem. Or
people who come along and have that view of, I'm here to solve problems, are the most magical people to work with, because you're just going in different ways. If someone comes along and says, I wish to be this person on these rails, then they're going to be really, really good at that. But if it's outside the rails, then they just can't help you. And that gets really challenging when something in the market shifts and you suddenly go, we need to do other things.
Yeah, particularly for smaller businesses and people going, you end up being like crypto. It's the same thing. It's a growing industry. You end up having to wear a lot of hats. You might be a sales guy, but you've got to do 10 different things, right? And if you just focus, you're right. So you need people, problem solving. There you go. That's a tip for the kids out there.
Yeah. Well, we've seen the whole
we do. Really, all the other stuff actually takes away, which is why, guys like me and Mike, we're the bottleneck at the firm, is everyone wants to talk to us and do the stuff. It's just let's, with my guys, I like to mentor them on that problem solving side and get them involved in that, because that's the valuable bit that they grow into, not here's the instructions and do some bits and pieces. But so if we can get that bit done faster, easier, then we can solve more problems.
Exactly, and that's your AI can never replace that, because it can't. There's those creative solutions. It could come up and say, here's what other people do in cookie cutter, but half the problems you see in challenging files that come along and say, we've got something wrong. You go, because you just copied what somebody else did.
Yeah.
That's happened a lot, where Fenwick was doing something some way, and then some people went, we'll just copy what they're doing. But it turns out
Fenwick know what they're doing, but they didn't think about it.
Yeah.
They didn't apply that problem-solving brain to it. I've done some really cool structures, bespoke. There's always we have a standard and we know kind of why. And then when it's different, you go, well, here's
correct,
customized or completely reworked. And that's the fun bit. If I was going to roll out standard structures all the time, it doesn't make sense. You do a lot of corporate structuring, but it's not just here's your foundation, your company, and done. You've got to think about it. You've got to go, well, does it fit? If it doesn't, then we need a different strategy. There's all the nuances of actually applying it. And if you just go do what everyone else is doing, you generally end up paying more money and then it doesn't work.
Create that value.
Exactly. It's kind of like having a Mr. Potato Head, or just having a Ken doll, or a Barbie, whatever floats your boat. But one's done, and you can't do anything with it. Sure, you can change its clothes, but that's it. The underlying's the same. Mr. Potato Head, you can change the ears, you can change the nose.
I'm stealing this one, man. That's 10 out of 10.
So, but you know what I mean? That level of customizing the right things. Yeah, I think as Harry says, you rarely see the same structure twice, right? There's always some little flavor that's different, and sometimes the irony is the founders and people come in and say, I want the same thing. Give me the Ken doll. And you go, there's a little bit of difference here. And there's an important reason why. And understanding that important reason why is key.
Often it's a funds question, really early stage. They don't want to pay hundreds of thousands of lawyers. And I get that. So the strategy that I go is what's the minimum that you need right now to pivot into probably the right
viable
structure?
legals.
Yeah, basically, yeah. You're full of zingers, mate. I thought I was going to have zingers, but it's just you.
Potato Head, I think the potatoes.
Potato Head, that one's got to make the cut.
Last time Mike came in, we took to the end before we realised he's a big computer gamer.
Oh yeah,
right.
What are you playing, mate?
We haven't even talked. Well, we've got to find out what you're playing.
Got onto the video game.
But I don't know if we're going to have time. But the thing that's blown my mind, we still haven't. I can't believe we haven't spent more time on it. You could have been the greatest male vocalist since Andre Botticelli.
Yeah,
you've kept that one to yourself.
Yeah, actually, it's some trivia. I was saving it for my autobiography. But when I was in year 11 and 12, I got approached by the conservatorium through my voice teacher to get a full scholarship, and they were like, yeah, you just got to learn German, French, and Italian. And I was like, no dice. And I picked a law degree instead for some reason. But luckily it all turned out in the end. But it could have been a very different universe.
You could have been singing on a farm getting tax breaks.
Yeah, it would have been a very different podcast. It would have been very different. Yeah. What games are you playing?
Is it time to say goodbye?
Is it, are you kicking us out?
He didn't even get the joke.
Oh.
I'm not kicking you out. I do have another meeting to get to.
And there is a Super Bowl.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes.
I've double booked myself. But we could not miss a chance to have a chat with Mike because I knew you're back in town. Because you're in town for the week and then you got to
I literally got off the plane a couple of hours ago. First stop,
come to see the boys. Thank you for coming.
100%.
on, Mike.
So if
I'll be
anyone
there,
watching
I'll be
is
there.
awesome, yeah. There's a bunch of great Aussies for coming to Consensus, then on to East Denver.
All right, we'll exchange details after this and we'll catch up.
Yeah, 100%.
Hey, I got to go. Well, actually, the party I'm going to is a chain analysis, so
Oh yeah.
I'm gonna do a Harry to Mike, the other Mike, and show up late to his party.
Is it Super Bowl party at Chain
Sorry.
Analysis?
I didn't know chain analysis around Super Bowl parties.
They are today.
I'm impressed.
All right, I'm going to crash it.
Yeah, come with me.
Yeah, I will.
All right, bang.
Done.
Party on.
Come on, Harry, let's go.
I would. I've got a meeting this afternoon.
He's got to work. He says
Unfortunately.
his
I've got
staff.
a
Remember?
3-hour meeting this afternoon. to do.
Live for the video.
I'm just working hard solving problems for everyday Aussie crypto businesses. So, yeah, that's a.
They already turned that off a few minutes ago. Excellent.
See you, Bill.